Good afternoon, everyone. So today's session is not going to be a prolonged one as I am habitual of doing, but rather today's session is going to be as fierce as our latest LCH Prachand, as prolific as Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, and we are going to discuss Swadesh Darshan Circuit, as unpredictable as the Indian monsoon, as we are currently witnessing, especially in Delhi, and as multilateral as this Shanghai Cooperation Organization, of which Narendra Modi was recently a part. He visited Samarkand in Uzbekistan. This is just the overview of these four major topics. They are going to be pretty short and sweet, and I'm sure that it's going to be a very exhilarating session. So I know that you have been viewing all the videos. Okay, we got a new chopper, and it's got a lot of features. It's a light compact helicopter, but what actually goes beyond or goes inside that creation? Everything looks good from the outside, but what the intricacies, what lies beneath that? What were the reasons that this was supposed to be acquired, this was actually built, and how it is going to enhance the prowess of the Indian Army and the Indian Air Force? Recently, Indian Air Force was also bestowed with a new uniform. So all these happenings are taking place. So again, as always, there are plenty of videos on the net. LCH and Prachand is there, Arambh hai Prachand and all that. But as always, I aim to give a different perspective and different aspects, and also with all my infographics and icons, I make it sure that whatever I am telling you, it makes an imprint, it gets imbued on your minds. So we are discussing the Prachand, that is India's very own light combat helicopter. There are various categories of helicopters which we are currently dealing with. We have the LCH, we have the advanced light helicopter, we have the LUH, light utility helicopter. So we'll be discussing those also, not only Prachand. So basically, this is the gist what was in the news. The indigenous light combat helicopter, and the name is derived from the English. The Prachand translates to the English fierce, and it was formally inducted into the Indian Air Force at the Jodhpur Air Base. So it is capable of, obviously, most of the people are interested in how many missiles it will carry, and how much counter the capability of its anti-terrorism capabilities, counter-insurgency capabilities. But Prachand is a lot much more than that. So first of all, we'll talk about the genesis of the light combat helicopter. Now, I don't know about the latest generation, but for the 90s kids and the generations before that, we are well aware of the Kargil war. And especially if you have seen the movie LOC Kargil, we know that how difficult it was for the Indian forces, because they were at a disadvantage. They were at a ground while the insurgents were situated as a peak. So that was the major reason, because Air Force at such uninhabitable conditions or such difficult conditions, the Air Force, like we have the Sukhoi or MiG, it is difficult for them to pinpoint or target particular insurgents. So that's where the need was felt. Although we had choppers back then also, but that was where the need was felt for us to develop a utility or combat helicopter which should be able to operate or apply at high altitudes, at cold weathers, even in places like Siachen, the highest battleground in the world. So all these in desert conditions also. So all these made it imperative. All these reasons made it imperative for India to develop its own indigenous helicopter. We are using the helicopters, we have the utility helicopters, we are using the Russian Mi-17, Mi-35, we are using the helicopters Apache from US, we are using the helicopters from France also, that is the Chetak and the Cheetah. So again, make in India, because now we are not only emphasizing or contributing in the form of imports. One of the largest importers, India is, sort of famous for being one of the largest importers of defense equipments. But that image India wants to change, and that it wants to make in India that self-sufficiency, that Atmanirbhar that we keep talking about. And then we are going to create ourselves, to form ourselves into an export base. So basically this is the genesis. So again, even in the icons which I put a lot of thought in it. So it's not that. So here, if you remember the Kargil war, one howitzer artillery was very famous at that time, which played a pivotal role in enabling the Indian forces to win over the war. And this is the representation of the Bofors howitzer missile. So this is, we have already discussed that this Kargil war was the basic, it was the starting of the imperative or the requirement for an indigenous LCH or light combat helicopter. And then we have already, the need was, it was to be operated in cold, high latitudes, in desert conditions, in very inhospitable environments. So this was the requirement in mountainous areas. Then how it was developed, normally in videos you see there's an important concept known as the technology demonstrator. So prior, whenever a car is built or any defense equipment is built, it is not that we straight away assemble all the parts together, we apply the weapon system and radars and all that. No, a type of blueprint, a type of prototype that is to be created. So in layman terms, this technology demonstrator is a type of prototype or a pre-model that was used to frame or develop the actual defense helicopter. Then these are just stats. These are the number of flight hours. So 1,600 flight hours and over 2,000 flights, because we are just not being can't be complacent in developing development of such an a pivotal part of our defense manufacturing. So all the tests were conducted properly, and then initial operation clearance was given in 2017, and it was also under the import embargo, because all the time recently, regularly on a frequent basis, we have been emphasizing on self-sufficiency, especially the Make in India program. And then in November 2021, Prime Minister Modi symbolically handed over the LCH to the Indian Air Force, finally paving the way for its final induction. And then in March this year, the Cabinet Committee on Security approved procurement of 15 LCH limited series production, 10 for IAF and 5 for Army. So still there is a pending process for a lot of other helicopters to be procured. So it was a staggering 3,887 crore, and sanctions were also there. So it became part of this. Finally, it has become part of the Indian Air Force and the Indian Army. Now, one critical aspect, or one, I can link this term Cabinet Committee on Security, you can link this with the polity, Indian polity. For example, there are various standing committees where there are various ad hoc committees. So how they are created, what are their purpose from the point of view of mains, and for the point of view of mineral prelims, the Cabinet Committee on Security, who is the head, who is the chairman, and how many members from which section of the parliament it is constituted. So all these are important. So it is how I aim to establish the links. So again, like I was talking, there is a multitude of features, but people tend to just go superficially over it. Again, I have made the use of icons. What is so special that sets it apart, that sets LCH apart from the normal helicopters we have? That is, one is this narrow fuselage and tandem, one behind the other. That is, normally when I'll show you some pictures of the other helicopters also, when we talk about helicopters, tandem means that the structure is one behind the other. So it's a narrow fuselage, that is narrow body. So the pilot is sitting on the front, and instead of, in normal helicopters, what we have is that one person is accompanying, the co-pilot is sitting just on the passenger seat, we can say on the side, and there are two more seats behind. But in this, the pilot is sitting at the front, and right in tandem, right behind is the co-pilot, and he is also the WSO or weapon system operator. So this is one of the distinguishing features. Then we have this maximum takeoff weight of 5.8 tons, which corresponds to 5,800 kilograms if we talk about metric units. Then maximum speed of 268 kilometers per hour, range of 550 kilometers, and endurance of over 3 hours in service ceiling. That is the maximum density altitude to which it can reach. So it is, it's not a small 6.5 kilometers. So it can go up to a height of 6.5 kilometers. We know that Mount Everest is around 8.8 kilometers, and we also know, if we go into geography, atmosphere, we know the height of the troposphere, it varies from 8 kilometers to 16 kilometers. So this 6.5 kilometers is a very important component. That is what makes this LCH Prachand very special. Then uses radar absorbing material to lower radar signature. Obviously, if you are in the danger, if you are in the enemy territory, you would want yourself not to be recognized or not to be detected. So this is one feature, and there is a pressurized cabin which protects the occupants or the pilots and the co-pilots from nuclear, biological and chemical warfare if those kinds of weapons are used. Then this crash proof structure and landing gear. Then it is powered by two French origin Shakti engines manufactured by the Hindustan Aeronautical Limited, that is HAL, and this is actually the icon of an internal combustion engine, not exactly corresponds to that. I could not find an icon, but anyways. And as far as the weapons, the one of the most famous parts which normally people are concerned with, we have a 20 turret gun, 70 rockets and air to air missile. So this is the form of a turret gun. If you have seen Rambo or some Sylvester Stallone movies, he uses these type of guns. So this is similar to a turret gun. Okay. Now, one of the another interesting, this is an important part. So according to its makers, the LCH is the only attack helicopter in the world which can land and take off at an altitude of 5,000 meters. The maximum density is 6.5 kilometers, which we have discussed, but this is also an important criteria which meets all the requirements of the Indian Air Force. Then the other Indian choppers which we already have in action, we have mentioned, mostly they are utility helicopters, not meant for combat. So utility means there are multi-purpose: combat, counter-insurgency, humanitarian, rescue, and reconnaissance and surveillance operations. So basically these are, if you have heard of, these are images I have just got. So Chetak, this is Lancer, Dhruv, then this is Mi-35, Chinook and Apache. And normally India has been operating sub 3-ton category French origin legacy helicopters, that is LUH, light utility helicopters, the Chetak and the Cheetah, made in India by HAL. And similarly, there is a weaponized version of the Cheetah, that is Lancer. Lancer is shown here. And then these are primarily utility helicopters, as we have discussed. Then we have also mentioned that India also uses the Russian helicopters, the Russian versions. This is the Mi-17, this is the Mi-35. This is a nice picture. Mi-17, if we go into detail, Mi-17 was one of the was the chopper in which was the fateful helicopter which carried our late General Bipin Rawat in the Nilgiris, which crashed unfortunately. So just a fact for you. Then HAL had already worked on the Advanced Light Helicopter Dhruv and its weaponized version ALH, and Advanced Light Helicopter, that is Rudra. Then Chinook. This Chinook and Apache are the US versions, and Chinook is an advanced multi-mission helicopter with strategic airlift. You can see here, and you might have seen also in the movies also, these type of helicopters. For example, if some people are stranded in disasters or in during cyclones or floods, so these type of rescue missions, even in counterinsurgency, to drop off to transport troops and artillery, this is used. Then this is the one of the important Apache, US Apache helicopter, which is used for which is very famous for combat. So these are the important choppers apart from Prachand that we use. So the runway height, we already know that if according to HALS, 160 LCH are required, 65 for IAF and 95 for Indian Army. So this is just a bit of facts for you. So it aims to provide, the HAL aims to provide the peak production capacity of 30 helicopters per year. And LCH we've already talked about, formally inducted into the Indian Army at Bangalore and IAF at its Jodhpur Air Base. And we were talking about the Atmanirbhar scheme and the self-sufficiency in defense exports. So already we are receiving orders from countries like Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam, Angola, all these countries. So we are going to play a very important part in this defense manufacturing. So coming on to the next. So currently what is happening is, if we consider Delhi, this is not actually the monsoon season. Now we are into the period of the retreating monsoon, but still you are seeing that there is a deluge of rainfall, that is non-stop incessant rainfall is occurring for the past 2-3 days. So that is primarily, again, climate change is there, global warming is there, but I am going to go into slight basics or the technical aspect of why it is happening. Everybody knows global warming is there, but how it is actually contributing to the immense rainfall, that we'll discuss in brief. So research shows that global warming increases the fluctuations in the monsoon, resulting in both long dry periods and short spells of heavy rains. So what it is doing, if you observe carefully, is that when it is not raining, then it is a drought-like condition or dry condition continuously for a long period of time. And when it starts to rain, then it keeps on raining for a relatively longer period of time. It's not that the normal trend of rainfall or normal trend of droughts or normal dry periods are being followed. So there is both temporal and regional variability. So that variability has increased to a massive level. Temporal means over time. So time, like we are into October, and at this point of time there should not be so much of rainfall occurring in Delhi, but that is temporal variation. And regional variation, we'll discuss also that places which were the hubs of rice production, like eastern Uttar Pradesh, Bihar and West Bengal, so they have experienced a deficit of rainfall this monsoon season. So how climate change impacts monsoon, just brief points. So although it is very complex to understand the variability, it is becoming increasingly complex and increasingly difficult for the weather forecasters also to predicting disasters is a far-fetched thing. Just forget about it. Just even forecasting the rain, when the rain is going to take place, how much humidity is there, precipitation will occur or not, it has become very complex to predict. And then some stats: back-to-back active monsoon systems in the Bay of Bengal in July led to excess rainfall to the tune of 8%. Then alarming increase in floods and droughts. So the frequency and the intensity of floods in a particular region have increased, and where the drought traditionally or over the past years, where it is supposed to occur, then that intensity or that frequency has also increased. Then August 2 saw two back-to-back depressions forming in the Bay of Bengal. This we'll discuss in the next map which I'll show. Then Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat, Rajasthan and parts of Maharashtra have recorded excess rainfall. Normally they don't experience such kind of rainfall. Then while summer monsoon rainfall each year is unique, there has been a large regional and temporal variability in rainfall this year, which we have already discussed. Then in contrast, West Bengal, Jharkhand and Bihar did not receive normal rains, which has a profound impact on the rice production. Then there is evidence that global warming increases the fluctuation in the monsoon, again resulting in both long dry periods and short spells of heavy rains. So these are some of the basic factors which affect the Indian monsoons. This we have, if you have seen the video on droughts, then I had discussed La Nina condition in detail. By definition, in simple layman terms, if I wish to define it, then I can say that it is the spread or the predominance of the cold waters in the equatorial Pacific Ocean, contrary to what happens in the El Nino conditions, but I am not going to discuss in detail. Then abnormal warming of the East Indian Ocean. East Indian Ocean refers to the, if you are following the news on a regular basis, you might have observed or read that currently there is a lot of rainfall taking place in and around the Indonesian region. Then we have the negative Indian Ocean dipole. We know that dipole is basically, it consists of two separate, two contrasting things. So dipole in this scenario refers to the difference in the temperature, or we can refer to difference in the pressure. So negative Indian Ocean dipole means that the colder waters, that is the waters surrounding African continent, are much colder, and that is why the drought like conditions are there, whereas the eastern Indian Ocean, that is the area surrounding Malaysia and Indonesia, that has warmer waters, that is leading to the rising of the air with increased moisture and then causing increased precipitation. Then we have southward movement of monsoon depressions and lows, which I've already explained, but I'll also be explaining in a while. Then we have pre-monsoon heating over the Himalayan region. Obviously, this is a prerequisite. We all know about the heating of the Tibetan Plateau, which is one of the major important prerequisites for the advent of the southwest monsoon. So before that, before discussing the food security, what I mean, this is a infographic which I happen to come across. So what exactly is happening over here? We have read that this area currently, this eastern UP, Bihar, West Bengal and Jharkhand, they have received a deficit of rainfall. That is because currently this area, this central India, the northern peninsular part that comprises of Madhya Pradesh and these regions, the northern Chhattisgarh also. So these regions, there is a low pressure that has been traveling continuously from the Bay of Bengal, and due to the La Nina conditions and due to other factors like the western disturbance factor is also there. So this depression is constant, it is not being allowed to move from here. So currently similar type of depression is there on in and around Delhi also. That is why we are receiving incessant rainfall for the past 2-3 days. So this is the main reason which we were discussing about the climate. And if you observe, now you might ask me that, if the moisture, if the warming is increasing, so obviously then the air, it will happen to contain more, it has capability of containing more moisture, because obviously if we go to the science basics, so whenever air warms, so if the molecules of the air, they are like this, so when the global warming, what will it will do, whenever any type of air is warm, the molecules will go apart from each other, and if we consider the water molecules, there will be more space for the water molecules to accumulate here. So this is the how it functions. So the global warming is causing the overall heating of the air and the landmass, and that is why more moisture is getting occupied, or more moisture is available in that particular air. And now you might ask that, so if the monsoon winds are moving, so it should have caused widespread and more rainfall in each and every aspect, but that is not so, because the global warming, the contrast or the gradient, that is the land is also warming and the ocean is also warming, so the gradient or the difference of temperatures, what happens is the high pressure, the winds move from high pressure to low pressure, but when both the bodies, the land and the water, are warming, although at different rates, the temperature gradient and the gradient which is attracting that circulation, it has become weak. So what is happening is, whenever this large quantity of moisture laden air is there at a particular point, for example this cloud contains a lot of moisture, but due to less decreased monsoon circulation, it is not able, or the winds are not able to disperse these clouds. So once this cloud or this air gets saturated with so much moisture, that is a sudden deluge or a lot of torrential rainfall takes place in a particular region. So this is what is happening. And one more one or two more facts which I would like to discuss, that the oceans are warming at a much greater pace as compared to land. That is because the specific heat of water is much greater, and over the past 50 years, it has been established that the oceans have absorbed over around 90% of the heat that has been caused due to the global warming. So that gradient is further increased. One important fact, or you can call it a boon, or because of so much pollution, Delhi and the adjoining cities like Ghaziabad are one of the two or three of the most polluted cities in the world. So what happens is that pollution, that soot particles, dust particles, they lead to the spread of aerosols. So what aerosols do is, why I called it as a boon or a sort of advantage, although it is not for our lungs or bronchitis. So what is happening is, whenever the sunlight or the light, it strikes the aerosol particles, mainly the pollution particles. So these particles, they scatter the light. So in a way, all this light or all this heat is not able to reach the ground, and all this light is unable to provide that cumulative heating effect. So in a way, we can say that comparatively, as compared to the other countries or the other land masses where pollution is less, the Indian landmass has not heated to such an extent as compared to the other land masses. So if in case, and that is a difficult proposition to consider, if in case that aerosol or pollution gets reduced in India somehow, so we might witness a greater rise in the temperature. So these are some of the things that we need to consider. So here some stats are given, so you can easily see that. And one important last component of this is climate change and food security. Like we have seen that, Kharif crops. So we are reaching the end of the Kharif season, and you will get to know, because the pollution levels are going to increase right about Diwali, when the stubble burning in Punjab and Haryana start. Then they form a significant share of more than 50% of total food grain production. And Bihar, West Bengal, and Uttar Pradesh, they account for a third of the country's production. But we have already discussed in the previous slides that because of witnessing a rainfall deficit, they have led to a severe shortfall in the rice grain production. Then they lead to the increasing temperatures and humidity give rise to pest attacks and diseases. And this is not only about the increased amount of increased precipitation or rainfall that affects the rice production or the grain production. Even the drought like conditions, they affect the production of crops. How is that? First of all, if the temperatures are rising, so they induce heat stress and affect the plant physiological processes. They lead to spikes in the sterility, that is, the pollen grains are unable to fertilize the stigma part, that is the ovary part of the flower or the grain. And drought, on the other hand, what happens in case of drought is, if we consider a simple plant diagram, so these are the leaves, these are the roots. So if the soil is, we know that most of the constituents, most of the nutrients that a plant gets, it absorbs from the soil. And how does it absorb from the soil? You might have heard about a concept known as transpiration. So what happens is, there are small pores or little holes on the surface of the leaves, which are known as stomata. So what happens is, this stomata, when they are open, because of the heat or the warmth provided from the atmosphere, the water contained in that leaf, or the water being drawn from the soil or the roots, it is evaporated. So in a kind, there is a kind of a vacuum that is formed. For example, you can take the example of a straw. How are we able to draw fluid or liquid from a straw? So when we are sucking from a straw, so what happens is, we are sucking out all the air. So a kind of vacuum is created, kind of low pressure is created. So that liquid, it then fills that straw, and we are able to drink that fluid or liquid. Similarly, when the moisture is removed from the leaves, a kind of vacuum is created, and that allows the movement of water, allows the movement of the solvent solutes to the leaves and various stems and other branches of that particular tree or particular. So what happens in drought is, of course, this stomata, these leaves will dry up because there is insufficient water quantity that is below what is required. And finally what will happen is the solutes will become immobile, that is the solvents without any water or any liquid content, the nutrients of water will not be able to move. So that will lead to the reduction in leaf expansion and plant biomass and increase heat and stress. And obviously uneven distribution leads to the dispersion or the spread of pests and other diseases. So this is how the vagaries of the monsoons are affecting. So climate models indicate that global warming is expected to increase monsoon rainfall by 14% by the end of the century if the greenhouse gas emissions remain high. So this is primarily, we have already discussed, this is primarily due to the rise in the moisture content, rapid heating of the global oceans. We have already discussed that 90% of the heat of the global warming effect that has been caused over the past 50 years, that has led to the rapid heat that has been absorbed by the water bodies or the oceans. Then we have terms such as sea surface temperatures. Then I discussed this, that warming over land in India in the last century is much less compared to other regions, that we can say because of the greater pollution or aerosol content. Then weakening of the land sea temperature gradient, which we have already discussed, and that has led to the decrease in the monsoonal circulation. Then, so even if the monsoon circulation is weak, certain episodes like in Maharashtra, so we know that since the moisture content, there is more space in between the air molecules, more moisture can accumulate. So once the clouds or the air, the saturated air, it heaps up or it accumulates over a surface for a long period of time, it can cause torrential rainfall and finally floods. So for the time being, we'll just stop over here, and rest of the topics we are going to discuss the next time.